Bună seara, sunt Luca Niculescu. Europa are o nouă problemă. Războaiele de pe alte continente determină tot mai mulți oameni să riște totul pentru a supraviețui. Refugiații de război au devenit o marfă de traficat. Dar mai grav este faptul că acești oameni, lipsiți de orice fel de protecție, sunt lăsați să moară pe drumul lor către o viață mai bună. Începe Pașaport diplomatic. Mulți dintre refugiații care pleacă spre Europa sunt copii. Din disperarea de a-i salva de război, părinții fac eforturi supraomenești să găsească bani pentru a plăti o cursă către libertate. Dar deseori aceasta este un drum către o moarte sigură. Aflăm imediat dacă există soluții pentru rezolvarea acestei situații.
Europa pare a fi sub asediul emigranților. În fiecare săptămână, o medie de 10.000 de refugiați intră ilegal în Europa, cei mai mulți traversează cu mijloace improprii Marea Mediterană. Refugiații de război care fug din nordul Africii și din Siria au devenit o marfă pentru traficanți. Contra unor sume deloc neglijabile de câte 5-6 mii de euro de persoană, traficanții îmbarcă pe vase maritime nesigure și transportă pe mare spre țărmurile europene. Dar nu întotdeauna călătoria este o reușită. Multe dintre aceste nave sunt abandonate în mijlocul apelor și cei înghesuiți la bordul lor ajung în pericolul de a-și pierde viața. În ultimele luni, 1600 de oameni au murit în 2 naufragii, care au emoționat puternic opinia publică și au determinat autoritățile europene să reacționeze. Bruxelles a decis să aloce mai mulți bani pentru a îmbunătăți viața refugiaților care ajung în țările Uniunii. În plus, paza de coastă din țările cu ieșire la mare supraveghează îndeaproape traficul naval, încearcă să intercepteze vasele traficanților și să salveze cât mai mulți oameni. Una dintre propunerile pe care Comisia Europeană le-a făcut în această săptămână este ca fiecare stat membru să primească câte o cotă de refugiați. Această soluție a fost cerută insistent de țările care se confruntă cel mai mult cu problema refugiaților din Mediterană, în special Italia și Grecia. Remediul e privit însă cu reținere de unele țări din nordul continentului, de Marea Britanie sau Danemarca. Autoritățile britanice, de exemplu, refuză să participe la program, pe motiv că astfel și mai mulți imigranți vor fi tentați să vină pe continentul nostru. În timp ce statele Uniunii Europene refuză să se ocupe de câteva zeci de mii de refugiați, Turcia face exact contrariul. Țara vecină cu Siria adăpostește 2 milioane de refugiați sirieni care au ajuns aici în ultimii 4 ani de când a început războiul civil. Acesta este de altfel și statul care primește cel mai mare număr de refugiați din lume. Guvernul turc le oferă refugiaților sirieni un permis temporar de muncă și acces gratuit la învățământ și la sistemul medical. Doar 200.000 dintre refugiații sirieni stau în tabere. Pentru ceilalți se caută soluții de integrare în orașele turcești. În urmă cu câteva săptămâni, președintele turc a criticat lipsa de acțiune a Europei în chestiunea refugiaților. Europa îi lasă pe oameni să moară, a spus Recep Erdogan după cele 2 tragedii soldate cu peste 1000 de victime în Mediterană. El a amintit că este o responsabilitate umanitară să primești refugiați.
Suntem puțin descurajați de faptul că partenerii europeni dezvoltați economic nu prea doresc să arate solidaritatea necesară pe care o așteptăm din partea lor. Ambasadorul Turciei a făcut această declarație ca referire la faptul că Europa se implică destul de puțin în rezolvarea crizei refugiaților de război. În plus, el atrage atenția că sunt în joc destinele unor oameni care au dreptul la o viață mai bună.
Europe has a debate about the Syrian and the North African refugees. Some countries want to accept only a few amount of people on their territory. What is your opinion about this issue?
For example, as far as I know, the what we call as a resettlement term, the resettlement quota in the EU is about 100,000. So even if the EU countries succeed to use the maximum, they can maximum take 100,000 refugees in terms of a resettlement program. The number of refugees in Turkey is about 2 million, so it's nothing actually. Yes. So we are also a bit discouraged by the fact that the economically developed European partners are unwilling actually to show the necessary solidarity that we were expecting from them. So we are a bit disappointed by this trend.
Your country, Turkey, is the closest European country to the war zones in the Middle East. You are confronted with a large number of immigrants that are fleeing the war. And my first question is, how do you cope with this situation?
It is actually a very difficult mission, a big challenge as well for my country, as you rightly suggested. We are very close to conflict zones in our periphery, and thousands of people seeking better lives or fleeing from persecution is heading towards Turkey and trying to cross our borders illegally. Of course, it's as I say, a big challenge to tackle with, and we are trying to do our utmost, of course, to deal with the humanitarian aspect of the issue as well as the crime-related part of it. And we try to work with our partners, the international community, to be part of a solution for a larger humanitarian challenge and disaster, actually.
We will talk about everything. The European Union now has drawn up plans for military attacks in Libya to try to curb the influx of immigrants across the Mediterranean by targeting the trafficking networks. Do you think this thing could work?
This is a very complex issue and multidimensional issue. It's a pre-crisis period, the crisis itself, and post-crisis period as well. Of course, there's a very serious aspect which is related to crime and security as well, because there are smugglers who are earning a huge amount of money from these vulnerable people. As we know, a migrant is paying like 5,000 or 6,000 per person to the smugglers for better lives in Europe or in Turkey or elsewhere. So in the fight against crime-related portion of the whole phenomenon, of course, we need security measures. And also as Turkey, within our national capabilities, we are also trying our utmost, both in the sea and in the land borders.
What are you doing exactly?
In Mediterranean, for example, we have a special operation mission of our Coast Guard. They are following each and every ship, cargo ship, because the smugglers are changing their techniques and also tactics as well. In the past, for example, they were using normal ports of any given country in the Mediterranean, but now they are not using it. They are just putting cargo ships to international waters. They wait offshore, and then they take the refugee seekers or illegal migrants, whatever they are, from little boats to the offshore, so that the national countries like Turkey authorities cannot touch them, because as you know, in international waters, there's free flow of vessels. So there are very different types of techniques, and we are fighting against them through, as I say, a new mission of our Coast Guard, our military. We are following each and every vessel. If they stay, for example, longer than usual at a given point, we just try to connect with the flag country and to see whether they also have a cargo or not, or asking them what they are having. And if we think that there's something misleading, then we intervene in it. And there are quite dramatic numbers actually on that. For example, just last week, our authorities just survived more than 1,000 people in a ship in only one instance. Last year, the number of illegal or irregular, if I may say, migrants and people in need accounted for about 15,000 people were captured in the sea, and more than 1,000 smugglers were also captured. So they are paying off, but still the picture is so dramatic because we are also losing thousands of people as well, dying losing their lives on the sea.
And can you tell me a bit more about the impact of these refugees, these irregular immigrants in your country, the social impact, the economic one? It costs you a lot of money.
Yeah. It's also a big challenge for our national security, not only that, but economy and social harmony and many other aspects as well. Currently, we have some 2 million people in Turkey. A little bit more of 200,000 of them are living in camps, mostly Syrians.
Yes.
The number of Syrians is about 1.7 million, and the rest are from other countries, Iraqis notably. There were instances, for example, in just 1 week, we got about 200,000 Syrian refugees from the Syrian city of Kobani. So numbers are so big and problems are so big as well. So far, Turkey has spent about $6 billion US dollars for the needs of these refugees. As I say, about 250,000 of them are living in refugee camps, and all the expenditures in the refugee camps are spent by the Turkish government, including health, education, all kinds of training purposes, and etc. And only, a small percentage of it, like about 5% of them, are provided by foreign support from third countries.
Is Europe supporting you in any way?
Honestly, it's a minimal support. This is the economic aspect of it, which continues to be a heavy burden on the economy, and we are feeling it on our shoulders. It's now about 4 years. On the social side, there are now some cities in Turkey where the number of Syrians are more than the residents of this particular city. For example, Kilis, a southern town.
There are boats with refugees, with irregular immigrants crossing the Black Sea, and some of them are arriving on the Romanian coast. What are you doing about this issue?
Yeah, when you look to the figures of the last 2 years, most of the irregular migrants, if I may say, captured on the sea are on the agency. It's about 90% of it. When you look to the figures in the Black Sea, it's quite minimal. Yes. It's about 3%. 2013 and 2014 figures are giving us this. So there is not a big crisis on the Black Sea side. And for our authorities, it's relatively easier to tackle with the illegal movements on the Black Sea, because it's an easier sea for our security authorities and Coast Guard to have more control on the sea. But of course, we have focusing towards Black Sea. We are giving a very strong eye over there, because we don't want any route for migration to occur. On that, we are cooperating very closely with the Romanian authorities. We already have an agreement of readmission. We indeed signed the readmission agreement with Europe as well. What we think it's a major international problem. So fighting on the security front is a must, of course, and Turkey is the only country fighting against it on the outflow, not in the target country. We are both the transit country and the target country. But in the meantime, we also deal with the root causes of this problem, because however good security measures we take, however, whatever measures we take to keep people beyond our borders, if they want to come, they come somehow. Even if you do put a fence, that, in the case that some of our neighbors are doing, this is not the solution actually. And also we have to try to go to the root causes of these migration flows and refugee flows as well, so that we have to stop the problem in its source and not on the way going to the target.
How can you stop the problem on the source when you have countries fighting in terrible wars?
That is difficult.
They have, in Libya, they have no government, or they have 3 governments.
True, that is so difficult. That's why I say it's a very complex thing, and we have to show solidarity, because it's beyond the ability of a single country. So in the case of Syria, for example, the international community should act united and try to solve a problem, to find a problem in Syria. If I may give a concrete case in point, if Aleppo, for example, somehow taken control by the regime, for example, probably will have 1 million additional refugee seekers in our country, which honestly we cannot carry of its burden. So that's the thing that I'm trying to explain, that we have to look further to the destination countries, trying to find durable solutions. But of course, it's quite difficult and needs a long-term vision.
What are your expectations from a country like Romania?
With Romania, actually, we are cooperating very closely. As I said, there are various aspects of this issue. One aspect is the security issue that we have to tackle very robustly. And that's actually what the whole Europe is focusing on, yes. Only this aspect of it, which is not true actually, but we have to, of course, focus on this. On this, our security authorities are in constant contact with each other. On the larger issues, we can talk and sit with our Romanian partners, and they understand us in terms of helping Turkey to cope and tackle with this larger issue. Because imagine if Turkey fails to deal with millions of people in its own country, then there is no other way that these people, yes. will move towards further west, where we will have Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, and forward. Therefore, we actually need solidarity from our European partners. And in the case of solidarity, actually Romania is one of the foremost partners that we are having, both in multilateral fora and bilaterally.
Coasta de sud a Italiei este locul unde ajung, dacă reușesc să traverseze Marea Mediterană, cei mai mulți refugiați africani. Alessandra Quattrochi este jurnalist la Roma și cunoaște bine situația imigranților. Trebuie să spunem că acești oameni mor la ei acasă. Dacă îi blocăm în nordul Africii, îi lăsăm practic să moară acolo. Declarația îi aparține jurnalistei italiene, care ne-a acordat un interviu prin Skype.
First of all, tell me what's your opinion about the European Commission proposal in order to establish quotas on member states to admit migrants. Do you think it will work?
Well, whether it will work or not, it depends on the member states, and part of the member states do not agree with this new rule that the European Commission has presented. Particularly the United Kingdom says that it won't accept it. I think it would be a good thing for a couple of reasons. First of all, because Italy has been until now effectively left alone to deal with the huge flow of refugees that has been arriving on the southern coast of Europe. And it is good that the migrants can be divided. But first of all, the really important thing is that it is the first time that Europe is been going over the Dublin regulation. The Dublin regulation states that a migrant arriving in Europe has to ask for asylum only in the country where he or she first arrives. This is terrible for them, because many of them arrive in Italy because Italy is in the south, but they don't want to be in Italy. They want to go to France, they want to go to the United Kingdom, they want to go to Germany or Sweden. And until now, they couldn't. So what happened was, the migrant arrived in Europe, and if he wanted to ask for asylum, to seek asylum, he or she would just try to disappear so that he could arrive to France or Germany and ask for asylum there in the country where he or she really wanted to go. This means that many people arrived in Italy and tried just to get lost in nature instead of being helped and welcomed. So yes, I think that the European proposal is a good one, but it is very hard to have it applied because it depends on the member states.
And what we can do in order to increase the European solidarity, because you mentioned the example of the United Kingdom and Denmark and Hungary, who don't want refugees on their territory. There is a lack of solidarity, we can say.
There is a lack of solidarity. There is, I think, also a misunderstanding of the problem. People are not really understanding where the problem is. I think that what we as journalists can do is inform people as best as we can, and in a better way than we're doing now, generally. This means having data, this means talking numbers, this means trying to make people understand that the threat is not such a big threat, and it means also to explain to people that these people arriving here have a legal right to be hosted. Because refugees seekers running away from wars are protected by by international law. So if we say we have to shoot on the boat and we have to keep them in Africa because we can't host them, in fact, we are just saying refugees have to die there because we don't want them to come here. And it's not enough to say we don't want them to die at sea. We don't want to see boats that are going down, sinking in the Mediterranean. We have to say these people are dying at home. If we just block them in Northern Africa, we're just letting them to die in Africa. Instead that in the sea trying to get to Europe, and these people are desperate. And the history of humanity is made up of migration and people moving around. As journalists, what we can do is inform people, try to make people understand that it is not such a big threat, number-wise, and also that anyway we have to help these people. Well, and for the rest, actually, there will be always people that try to use migrants as scapegoat politically. The European Union tried to make something with this new regulation that I hope will be applied. There has to be a very strong European movement at the level of the European Commission, because that's where the things start, and that's what they started to do yesterday. And then it really depends on the singular countries, on this, because particular countries will never agree. It depends on the governments. David Cameron has just been re-elected in England, so he has all his possibilities. I mean, he won't agree very easily, but he might agree to have a smaller quotas maybe than what has been offered until now to him. Besides, Great Britain has a very strong tradition of housing migrants, as well as Germany and Sweden. There are other countries that should do more than they have done until now, but it is hard to take it out on the United Kingdom because their population is very much a mix and a result of migration already. They've done their bit in the past, let's say. And Germany has done a lot. And Sweden is the country that has done much more than everybody else.
Is there anything you are expecting from East European countries, Poland, Romania, the Baltic countries?
I think that they should remember that up to a few years ago, people from Eastern Europe were regarded in Western Europe as migrants that were coming here to steal our jobs, you know? This is something that journalists in Eastern Europe should try to remember all the time. That's something that we try to do also in Italy, saying, do you remember when we, the Italians, were leaving for the United States in the beginning of the 20th century, and we were starving at home, and we were trying to go and to find a better life in, well, everywhere, in Southern America, in Northern America. And these people are trying to do the same now. But what happened with Eastern Europe was much more recent, you know, particularly countries, Poland, Romania also, and other countries, had lots of people trying to come to Western Europe to find jobs and better life. And it is quite recent. We tend to forget it now because even in Italy now, if you meet a Romanian or a Polish, luckily, we consider him a European citizen, and that's all. But up to 10 years ago, it was not like that. We were still thinking of people coming from Eastern countries as people that were coming here to steal our jobs. And they were the scapegoat at that time. So I think that it's important that journalists in Eastern Europe try to remember to people that things can change very quickly.
What is happening in Italy when they arrive?
What happens to the refugees when they arrive in Italy? Okay, first of all, we're not talking about huge numbers. But it is true that the numbers that are arriving in Italy today are much bigger than what they were 2 years ago or 3 years ago. This means that there is a big strain on the structures in Italy. Typically, they arrive to the southern coast of Italy, in Sicily, in Lampedusa, or elsewhere in Italy. And not all of them want to stay in Italy. Many of them want to go elsewhere. Anyway, they are hosted into centers that are called CARA, and these are centers for the asylum seekers. But physically, what happens to them? They're just staying there for months and months and months inside these centers. And the SPRAR, after that, whether their question is accepted or not, is dealing on the local instances to house them, to feed them, and to help them. Now, this means that in any, for instance, in Sicily, let's say, there might be 10, 15, 20 local instances that have created houses to host the refugees. And they are given about 40 euros a day per refugee. But this money, of course, is not going directly to the refugee. It's going to the center that hosts them. And then there are organizations on the Italian territories that try to help them once they have become refugees. Most of these organizations are funded by the Catholic Church, but not all of them. We were used to deal with much smaller numbers up to a couple of years ago. Now that things have changed in Northern Africa, the numbers are much bigger, and the organizations in Italy are really straining to help all these people. We even have to organize them.
Are there any xenophobic movements, xenophobic actions against these refugees in Sicily or in some other place?
Well, not really actions. There have been some protests, particularly in certain periods, but no, I cannot, luckily, no, there are no actions against the centers. But there are xenophobic movement, yes, because refugees, even if they are quite a small number compared to the total of the population in Italy, are a very easy scapegoat and a very easy target, politically speaking. Personally, I think that the problem of migration is not a problem of, it's not an economical problem, it's entirely a political problem. Because it is very hard to tell people in the midst of an economic crisis, you have to host the poor people that are coming from abroad. And here in Italy, particularly, the Northern League, headed by Matteo Salvini, is using the migration problem as a scapegoat and as a weapon for an electoral campaign, going around saying that these people cannot be hosted here, they have to stay at home, we have to help them at home, we don't have the money to deal with them, and so on. It is not actually true, you know. It's Europe needs migrants. We are getting older and older, and we actually need migrants to sustain our economy today and our pension schemes in the future.
Aici se încheie ediția din această săptămână a emisiunii Pașaport Diplomatic, dar ne revedem sâmbătă la ora obișnuită, 22:30. Până atunci rămânem online pe contul nostru de Twitter și pe pagina de Facebook. La revedere!